Beautiful job. Once we've got statements and comments out of the way, next, I would want to switch our attention to variables, which are the most basic building block of JavaScript. Now, variables are not unique to JavaScript. Pretty much every programming language uses it because they give us an option to store the value, access it later, and also modify it. And to showcase what is the beauty of the variables, let's create a simple program where, I don't know, I'm going to have 5 console logs of my name, and I will sprinkle them throughout my code. And the way it's going to look like, I'm going to go with console log. And as a side note, you don't have to type out the long way if you're using the Visual Studio Code. If you're looking for console log, you can simply go with log and check it out. You right away have the suggestion that if you just press return, you're going to get a console log. And since that is what I'm looking for, I bravely press on enter, and that's what I get. So console log, and now of course my name, like I just previously promised. And we're going to imagine that my name is John Steak Burrito the 5th. Okay, good. And then, like I said, I would want to sprinkle this throughout my code. So I'm just going to add a comment here, some code here, just so you can see a realistic scenario. Well, somewhat realistic. Hopefully you get the point. So I'm going to comment this out, or I'm going to copy this. And then I can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I went one too many, but whatever. So we have 6 lines of console log. And then in here, we can imagine, I don't know, 10 lines of code, 100 lines of code in between. And then we have the next console log. And all is good until I check Ancestry.com, or my parents tell me that instead of steak burrito, you know who I am? I am a shrimp taco. And I can maybe add even 6. Okay. So what do I do now? Do I hop from one console log to another one and keep on changing these values? Or there has to be a better way, because you have to agree that, of course, since I can access all my console logs in here, it is somewhat doable. But if there is 100 lines of code, it is not very practical, meaning 100 lines of code in between my console logs. So what would be a better way? Well, a better way would be setting up a variable. So what I would want to do right now is selecting all of them and just deleting them, because we're going to set up our first variable. Now, in order to set up a variable, here's what we need to do. We need to have a keyword, which in our case is going to be let. Now, there's 2 others, but don't worry, we will cover them a little bit later. And once we have the let, then we need to come up with a name for our variable. Now, I know that you keep on hearing me saying the same phrase, which is you can name this or you can do whatever you would want, but, and this is going to be the case where, again, I'll use this phrase where you can name your variable however you would like. So, for example, I could store my name in the variable of pants. There's no rule that is preventing me from doing that. However, you also need to keep in mind that if you're using this in a program, and well, probably somebody else is going to work with it too, right? But even if it is just you, would you store your name in pants? You could, but would you want to do that? I don't know. I'm not sure. So just remember, naming is up to you, but it also would make sense if you would apply some general concepts of common sense. So where I could store the name, well, I could go probably with a name. I could go with first name, and don't worry, we're going to cover this little syntax a bit later, but I'm going to start with name. So let's just stay on a safe side. I'm going to go with name. I'm going to place a semicolon for now. And now, of course, I would want to use my console log just so I can see whether the code that I wrote actually makes sense. Now, if previously when I wanted to print something, I went with a quotation marks, which is for the string, if I want to access the variable in a console log, it's going to be a little bit different, where I directly need to look for that variable. So if variable is pants, then type in here pants. If the variable name is first name, type here the first name. And hopefully you get the gist where they do need to match. And I'm going to show you what error you're going to get in a second. But the moment we save it, you can see that in the console, I have this awesome undefined. Now, this is not an error. What it tells me is that JavaScript is saying, okay, so you declared a variable, which is beautiful, but you didn't assign any value to it. That's all. So the variable is there. I can access it, but you didn't specifically tell me what value is stored in there. So it's not an error. It's just undefined. Now, what is an error if I'm trying to access num, which is nowhere in my code? So in my code, of course, I have name. And then here I'm saying, hey, computer, get me num. And computer's response is, sure, here is the error for the num because you haven't defined anything that has this name of num. And what's also really cool that it right away tells me, hey, listen, the error is on line 6. So that at least gives me an idea of, okay, what would be wrong over here? Let's see. Oh, it's probably the name, correct? So I can simply say name, and yep, again, I have my undefined. All right, so how we can fix that? Well, we would need to add assignment operator, which is going to be a equal sign. So now after the equal sign, I can type whatever I want as far as my value. Now we'll start with the most simplest one, which is a string. So what string means is that we are placing a text over here. Now that could be one character, that could be an empty string, or it could be 10,000 paragraphs. So we need to have a quotation marks like so. And once we add those quotation marks, then in between we can write that text. Now, just to showcase that it could be also an empty string, let me save it and notice that I don't have the undefined. I just have the empty string. If I'm going to add one character, of course, I'm going to have one character. Now, I'm not going to add 10,000 characters, but I'm going to go a little bit crazy here and I'm going to say, yep, this is my string. So as you can see, nothing broke, nothing bad happened. I can store whatever string I would want in there. Now, of course, that doesn't make sense because remember, my name was what? Well, I believe it was John Shrimp Taco the 5th. And now the real beauty starts because what I could do is I could access that variable. So now I have John Shrimp Taco the 5th. So if we go back to my program where I had console log and then some code here, and if I select them and if I'll copy and paste them 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, 5, now I have all my John Shrimp Tacos there. However, if I check Ancestry one more time where they send me an email and in the email it says, you know what, we are terribly sorry. We double checked the records and you're not John Shrimp Taco the 5th. You are in fact 6th. What do I do now? Well, I simply just change it in one place. That's it. Voila. And everywhere throughout my code, I can still access the same value. That is the beauty of the variable, where again, we can set up a variable, we can assign the value, and we can access it all throughout our document.